Today we're going to start lining off the external hull planking. But before we do that, I want to show you some modifications I've made to some of the tools in my shop. For those of you who've been following my build, you'll realize I have an inside shop and an outside shop. Inside shop has relatively clean tools, while the outside shop has the big bulky tools and the ones that make a lot of mess. And there are a lot of tools that I wanted outside to bring inside, but I just didn't have the room. And so I made up this system using old Mac Pro computer bases to mount some of the tools on, and I was fortunate enough this week to get 2 new ones. So I just want to take you and show you those 2 new beasts. You should remember this one. This is the Proxxon chop saw, which really works fantastic, and I'm using it almost every day. And this is the first of the new ones, and this is the Proxxon bandsaw. I wanted this in the shop for quite a while and really very happy that it's finally come. And the last one that we just completed is the shaper, the Proxxon shaper. And again, they all have the same lovely cabinet where I can put all the things related to that particular tool inside, so I never have to look for anything. So once I'm using this, I know all the various parts are inside, and I can store inside any jigs and other issues or things related to using this tool, like stock and spare parts. So with that introduction, let's get back to the lining off of the strakes on the HMS Thorn. Lining off the planks can be quite intimidating, but it's really extremely simple. You can do it in a number of ways. You can take the bottom of the wheel and the bottom of the keel and measure the distance and just divide it by the number of bands you want to do. In the case of the Swan Practicum, we're going to divide it into 4 bands of planks. And as you know from previous videos, we've already installed the garboard strake, we've installed the wheel, and we've installed 2 of the strakes that come down. These would be strake number 18 and 19. But we've come up with a slightly different arrangement. The first 6 strakes, which is 14 through 19, are planked top and butt, which means it's a sort of a strange arrangement. And you're going to install these in bands of 2 planks at a time. So the first 6 strakes from the wheel coming towards the keel, we're going to include that as 1 band. At the bottom, we're sort of doing the same thing. We're going to put 5 strakes from the bottom coming up, leaving 2 bands of strakes in the middle of 4 strakes or planks each. Now you look at the layout that's been given to us by David in the book, and you'll see that at the bow and the stern there's some challenges. The strakes taper 7 to 8 inches depending on where we put the top band and the bottom band. And at the back, it's actually quite a bit wider. So what you'll do is measure each of these to get an idea of the width when you're marking the model out. So let's go to the model now, and we're going to line out the first band, which is from the bottom of the wheel to these marks. And these marks that I've put here, I've actually taken them off the plan. For those of you who have not done this exercise before, the layout that David has given you here, this is not written in stone. This is a guide to help you get an idea of how the plank should be laid. So when you take measurements off of this, or if you didn't have this and you were going to do it, what you're looking for is a series of clean lines so that when the eye looks at the hull, there's symmetry in the line. And so even though you may notice that I have actually marked it out already, going all the way forward, I'm not going to stick to this line as an absolute. I'm going to use this line as a guide, and Perhaps that's best illustrated if I put this board on it, and you will see if I follow the exact measurements, it's got a kind of a shape to it that is not a straight line. So with that said, we're now going to take the actual thread and follow the advice in the book and stick this thread on the model, which is going to give us the line that's going to make up this band of strakes. I have reset the bow a number of times, trying to get a nice clean line that when you look at the side, it almost looks like a flat line. Yet when you come and you look at the line from the bow, again, you get a nice, clean, straight line. And to get this, I actually use the French ruler. So there's no magic to it. You simply keep pulling the line until you're happy with what you see. So this is how I eventually got it. I found the part on the bow that I wanted to keep, took the line with the French ruler, and I covered the line with PVA and held it in place. We've established 2 of the 4 zones. The last 2 are simply established by taking the center line between the 2 zones we've set off, and all we need to do is really have a piece of paper that lines up the center line. You should be very happy with how this looks now, because this line follows the 2 other lines that we spent a lot of time trying to make sure they looked really very nice and that the symmetry was perfect. So coming in between, it should follow the same, have the same look, and we shouldn't have to do very much adjustment to this piece. Now do the exact same thing on the other side, and we can now start looking at creating the individual planks that fit in the individual zones. And just to show you that I'm always trying to make this thing better, I had completed this video and came back and looked at this bow line here, and I found when you looked at the boat on the side, it was coming down too much. I needed to lift it. So again, unhappy with the symmetry of the line, I took it out and have relifted it, and now we'll recenter the center line. So it's all about symmetry, and it's all about feeling comfortable with how the lines look. So you look at all sorts of different sides until you are comfortable with how the boards will flow. On the Admiralty Model website, there's a nice article written that explains how you line off the model and how you shape the planks or strakes to fit on these very delicate curves. That term is called spiling off, and to do that is really quite simple, so we'll just go through it. You take a piece of cardboard or paper or anything that you have, and I just stick it down with some tape. Doesn't have to line up perfectly at all. And then you get a protractor. I actually have two of them. I have a big one and a small one. And you want one that has a strong setting, because you're going to be pushing it against the previous plank. And so all you're going to do is to take the hard side, the non-pencil side, push it against the plank and drag it along. And what that's doing is making a copy of the shape of that plank. And you want to try and keep them lined up as much as possible. Now you can take this off, and what you've in fact made here is an exact duplicate of this curve here. You can put this on a mat and cut it out, or you can, if you're very good, like I am, you can just cut it out with a scissors. When you put this on the model, you're going to find you've created an almost perfect shape. So now you take this and you put it on a board and trace out that shape. You can also follow the way you've done it in the past, which is to draw out a paper template rather than transfer it to a piece. So you can keep it on the cardboard or transfer it to a thin piece of paper. And then when you do the other side, do the same thing and then stick that paper template onto the board and cut it out. So that looks like a pretty good match, almost perfect. So before we do that, we now have to calculate the other side. In the reference material, David makes mention of tick strips, and I had never heard what a tick strip was. So I assumed it was a 3M sticky pad that you could take a piece and simply put it on a model and it would stick there, and then you could tick or put a mark on it. So I'm hoping that my assumption is correct. So we put one here. Draw in the line. Once we've established where the line off is, we can now take this and come on this little chart here in the center. Having recorded the width of the band at this point, we now want to make the individual width of the strakes. So this little chart will give us equal spacings for the width of the band at this point on the strake. So we simply mark those off, and we can then transfer that either onto the model or onto the individual plank that we're about to cut. And that will give us the width of the strake at this position. And then we repeat that all the way down until we have marked the strake out. And obviously I've already done it, so that you'll end up with a strake like this, and then you heat it in place and you should get a strake that lines up almost perfectly. In fact, this one is lining up absolutely perfectly with the model. The butt join is at aft cant 9, but we're having a little trouble getting a clamp to hold on the back, so we're going to use a liquid clamp. We're going to use some thick CA, and we'll use PVA for the rest of the plank. The PVA glue has a working life of quite a few minutes. So we'll hold this in place. Try not to stick our fingers onto it. And there we have the piece now complete and stuck in place. Well, I hope you found that useful. I've really enjoyed reminding myself in a very real sense how easy it is to do this, and really taking the time to make sure that I get the symmetry correct. And once that is really achieved, then it's just a matter of repeating what we've been doing all along in this practicum of planking part of the model. So we'll see you in the next video when we complete the planking in the various strakes. And I'll just put the headings up. You can decide whether you want to watch the whole thing or not. But again, for the sake of me covering every aspect of this build, I am actually going to cover the planking of each of the strakes. So we'll see you next time, and remember, keep modeling.